We're gonna talk about primers today, and I really wanted to address this subject because I think it's something that people have a lot of confusion about. They think it's one is really essential, that if you don't do it, then your makeup is like doomed, which is not really the case. And they don't know which one to go for. They seem to think about it like they seem to think about primer as a one size fits all, and that's not really the case either. So I really wanted to come here and just address what priming is for me. So priming really is getting the skin ready. Beyond the actual primer product, it's just getting your skin ready for makeup application, and just getting your skin very smooth so the foundation goes on really like butter on your skin. So what I like to what I like to do when I prime the skin is really cleansing the skin. So making sure that there's no residue of makeup, of debris, of free radicals and things, nothing sitting on top of the skin, so that makeup applies the way I want it to apply. And that way I have also more control. And you want to exfoliate, because if you have like a lot of like rough patches and like a bunch of so like dead skin and like little like flaky skin in certain areas, the foundation is just not gonna go on right. It's just gonna sit on top of the skin, and it's just not gonna look good. And moisturizing, you really want to make sure that your skin is moisturized. Even if you have oily skin, there should be a layer of moisture on top of the skin so that the foundation slips on top of it, if that makes sense. So you really don't need a separate primer. You can just use your moisturizer and make it suited for your skin type. So if you have like very dry skin, maybe go for a lighter moisturizer that has mattifying properties. Or if you have like very oily skin, no, I said that wrong. The opposite. If you have like super dry skin, you might want to go for something very moisturizing, as opposed to if you have oily skin, you want something that's going to be a tiny bit more mattifying. So the way that I think about primer is you can choose from three categories. There's a bunch and they do different things, but again, the way I think about it is in three categories. So it's either moisturizing, illuminating, so that would be more like the reflective type of primers, and it can be mattifying. So the illuminating, it can be a really glowy moisturizer that you may have. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a shimmery primer or a shimmery highlighter. It just has to be something that provides that glow to your skin. And that, again, that can be in the form of something with like pearl in it, or something that has more of a glow that looks more like a moisturized glow. So something matte in the sense that doesn't have shimmer, but that's very emollient on the skin. So the other thing that I like to think about when you think about primers is, where do you apply them? So for example, you can think about primers for different areas of the face. Obviously, this is not something that you want to do every single day because it would be too many steps, but you can really break it down into maybe having something more mattifying in the center of the face if it tends to get oily, and maybe something more hydrating or illuminating on the cheeks and like the perimeter of the face that tends to be drier and a tiny bit dull. And another thing that I want to mention is that I think primers should be applied in very thin layers, because ideally you're going to do a few skincare steps. So you might be doing your essence or your tonic, or you might want to do a moisturizer. The way I do it for me, for my personal use, is I apply a ton of serums that treat whatever concerns I have, and then I apply a moisturizer and an SPF. So that's already like 3 layers there that are already prepping the skin for makeup. So I may not even need to apply a primer per se, because my skin is already really well prepped. However, if you are someone that wants to do the primer because you want it for a specific reason, either for moisturizing or illuminating or mattifying, or you just want something that is going to grip your makeup and make it last longer, you really want to make sure that you apply like very thin layers, because very thick layers is going to do the opposite that you want it to do. uh, you may want it to make your makeup last longer, but if you apply a lot of product, it's gonna come off. So that's something to really like think about. So what I was saying, when I prep the skin, I make sure to cleanse it, and when I cleanse it, for myself, I may use like whatever cleanser I do, either in the shower or like outside the shower, something creamy or something like that. But if I'm working on a client, or if I'm doing more like on the go, I may go for something like this, so like a micellar water. I like the Garnier one, but you can go with something like Bioderma, or there's a bunch of different brands really that carry something like this. I like this one because it's readily available here in the States, and the price is right, it does what it's supposed to do, and it takes makeup off. So the way that I like to use something like this would be with a reusable cotton round, and this one is clean, it's just a bit stained from makeup. But I apply it on the cotton round, and I sort of like buff away any dead skin, so it's sort of like cleansing the skin and exfoliating it at the same time. So I'm just gonna do that right now. And if you don't have a bunch of dead skin, this might work for you as cleansing and exfoliating, because you're doing sort of like a very gentle scrub. And what I like to do is I like to focus it, especially here around my nose and around my chin. Around my mouth, I also get like very dry, especially now because I'm using Retin-A, and I tend to get a lot of like flakiness around here. So like I said, something that I think is really important is exfoliating the skin. Again, you might do it with the micellar water and the cotton round, but if you need something that does a little bit more for you, that maybe has AHAs or BHAs or PHAs, you might want to go for something like this, which is, well, this one is the Glow Recipe Watermelon Glow PHA and BHA toner, and this is really good because the PHAs and the BHAs are going to exfoliate the skin in a chemical way, so it's not going to be very abrasive. And this is really good for people that have very sensitive skin, because all that rubbing and so like abrasing the skin, it can be very damaging. So you can go for something like this, or for the Ren one, which is the Ready Steady Glow Daily AHA Tonic. So both of these have chemical exfoliators, which are going to be super gentle on your skin. These are both natural, both cruelty-free, and just clean skincare, really. They both provide a tiny bit of moisturization. This one is a tiny bit more moisturizing, but I would say both of these are really good for all skin types. So I'm just going to use this one here, and if you want to know a tiny bit more on this product in particular, I did film a video that is the last one that's posted here, and I talk a lot more about this product and a bunch of other like clean brands and clean products. So I'm just, again, just gently exfoliating my skin, making sure I'm spreading the product. And if I didn't have anything on my skin, if my skin was just like freshly washed and freshly cleansed, I would skip this step and just go for something like this, because I do like a chemical exfoliator. I do enjoy the acids, because they're very effective in both exfoliating and moisturizing, and they do everything at the same time. So it works harder for you. Okay, so my skin is very well exfoliated by now. It has a tiny bit of hydration from from this product right here, and I'm just gonna talk to you about the other type of primer that I like to use. These I use both in my kit and on myself. Again, this is not necessary. I like to use primers when there's something specific that I want to tackle. Okay, so for the moisturizing type of primers, there's three products that I like to use, and those are Weleda Skin Food Light and Weleda Skin Food Rich. and the Too Faced Hangover Primer. Both of these are moisturizing. I would say um, in terms of levels of moisturization, they will go from lightest to richest. So this is going to be perfect for someone who has oily skin, normal skin, or even slightly drier skin. This is going to be good for someone who has more normal to dry skin, uh, borderline significantly dry, and this is for someone that has a very dry skin. However, I will say if I'm doing my makeup, I like to use this maybe like on the high points of the cheeks just to add a tiny bit of glow. So this is actually my personal favorite because not only it moisturizes the skin, but it keeps the makeup on for a lot longer. And I will say this is my personal favorite because not only moisturizes the skin, but it's not heavy. It sort of like sinks into the skin while leaving a very smooth surface and something for the foundation to glide on. If you're in the market for something that has a tiny bit more highlighter, so something that's going to give you a glow and something that's going to give you like an oomph, you know, you want like that beautiful glowy dewy skin, I would go for something like these two. So either the Hollywood Flawless Filter by Charlotte Tilbury, which is this is the sort of product that you use if you want like a lot of glow, because this is not like this is not joking around. This is not for the faint of heart. It has a bunch of glow and it comes in a bunch of different shades, and it sort of has a tiny bit of coverage. It's not a foundation, it's not a tinted moisturizer, it just has a tiny bit of coverage. The other one that I like to use for highlighting, for its highlighting properties is the Glossier Future Dew. And this is really nice, and it's sort of like a very strange texture. It's sort of like a mix between an oil, like a thick oil, and a liquid highlighter. So it's going to give a lot of glow, but it also has skincare properties, and it just works. It looks really nice. This one doesn't particularly, well, either of these two don't particularly make your makeup last longer, but they work really well to give a glow. And if someone is really dry, I may like mix it, like a tiny bit of these two, or I mean a tiny bit of one of these into the foundation and like mix it in and just apply it everywhere. Or I'll just apply it like on the tops of the cheekbones, maybe on the bridge of the nose, maybe a tiny bit here, if I want that dimension when the person like moves their face. If you are on the market for something more mattifying, I honestly, unless the person is extremely oily, I don't go for this. However, I do like to use it on myself very, like when it's like very targeted. So for me, this area right here and the in between my brows and the chin tend to get very oily, so I may apply some of these more mattifying ones in the center of my face just to keep the the shine at bay. However, I do it on myself because my skin is normal. I do it on top of moisturizer. So I apply like very thin layers of the primer just to make sure that I don't create like a lot of like buildup, because you don't want to like apply a ton of layers of product and then your makeup slides off and it's just an all-around disaster. But the makeup primers that I like to use for mattifying the skin are the Professional by Benefit, and this one I've been using for years and years and years, and it's really mattifying and it keeps your makeup on for a long time. So if you're someone that really needs maybe like pore filling and just to keep shine at bay, this is a really nice one. This is a slightly newer primer, and I wouldn't say this is not even a primer really. This is something that you should, it's meant to be mixed in with your foundation to make it a tiny bit more long lasting. And I really like this because it's very liquidy, so that means that it's not going to create a lot of buildup of product on top of your face. So the way that I like to apply this one is just apply a tiny, like a couple of drops in the back, on the back of my hand, and you can see here, it's very like water. There's barely anything on the skin, but it does provide some slip while mattifying the skin ever so slightly and making your makeup stay on for longer. This I would say is good for someone that has more normal to oily skin, as opposed to this one that works for someone who's normal to very, very, very oily skin. If you're someone that's super oily, this is not gonna work for you. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the way that I like to do it if I'm like doing more like targeted areas. So I'm going to mix and match, and I did my exfoliation. I'm gonna apply a tiny bit of moisturizer, and I'm gonna be using the WELEDA Skin Food because this is not really a primer, it's just like a standard moisturizer. And I apply a tiny little bit. And I'm just gonna start working it mainly on my cheeks because it's where I need it the most. And whatever's left, I'm just gonna go over the center of my face. And I don't want it to be like too much because I'm gonna be applying primer on top. So I don't wanna, again, I don't wanna create like that much like buildup of layers. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be using this one, which is the one that's for very, very oily skin. And I'm just gonna take it with my finger. So I'm not applying too much, nor am I rubbing it too much. Well, this primer has silicone, so when you rub those silicone primers too much, they can peel off. So you really want to make sure that you smooth it in very long strokes and you're not rubbing too much. So I'm just applying it in between my brows where I said I have a lot of redness, and really just around here. And next up, I'm going to be using the Flawless Filter by Charlotte Tilbury. And I'm just going to go over my cheeks and maybe on the bridge of my nose. And like a tiny bit of that right here. So I'm just going to work it with my fingers. So I'm just working those into the skin, making sure that everything is well blended and that I'm not like bringing it, especially the highlighting one, too far into to the center of my face because I don't want it emphasizing my pores. So that's that. I really hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys soon.